This is Pod Populi.
Podcast for the people.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
Hi again, everyone. It's Brian Howie. Welcome to The Great Love Debate, the world's #1 dating and relationship podcast. Since 2015, I am here outside the studios of Pod Populi. I am in the one in Boca Raton, Florida, and because this time of year is so nice in Boca Raton, Florida, I wanted to sit outside and have a conversation on a nice sunny day, which gives you a relaxed feel, because we're going to get into some things that may or may not be so relaxing. And when I asked my guest to be on my podcast, she kind of wanted to know what we were talking about. And I made the comment, like I make with all my guests, like if we were going to brunch or dinner, you wouldn't say, what are we going to talk about? Or maybe you would. I don't know. What we are going to get into is a subject matter that we have touched on this podcast before. It is about a very specific time in someone's life when they have to date. So if you're not quite to that time, this is sort of the ghost of dating future. And if you're past that time, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, that was rough for me. And if you're in that time, you might want to take some notes on this. It is about what it is like, particularly as a woman, to date in your 50s. So I am not an expert on dating as a woman in your 50s, but I brought in somebody who knows a lot more about this than just about anybody I know. She is the host of the very, very popular 50s AF podcast, the lovely Nicole Chaness. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
So you heard me kind of bring that up. I think that for a variety of reasons, dating in your 50s is the toughest. So let me go big picture first. Assuming you're in your 50s?
55 and damn proud of it.
So if you dated in your teens and you dated in your 20s and dated in your 30s, dated 40s, you are at least stuck your toe in the waters of 5 different decades of dating.
Absolutely.
All have their own
40s,
feel.
Not 40s.
Not 40s. All have their own feel. All have their own challenges. All have their own pluses. All have their own sort of body of information. Now, with wisdom, we should improve just about in any aspect of life. I'm not sure that dating necessarily gets better when we get to certain, in terms of our skill set, in terms of how good we are at it. How do you look at, if you just had to sum up dating in your 50s in one sentence, how would you describe that?
Well, everybody's journey is different, Brian, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of digging it.
If you're digging it, you're going to do well. That is a good thing.
Yeah, no, I'm digging it. But when I say that, I had to have a journey before I was digging it. And, part of that starts out like, look, if you're single in your 50s, it's either you're a widow or you're divorced, right?
Or you never married.
Okay.
All have their own stories.
Absolutely. Which comes baggage
Mm-hmm.
and also a ton of information, knowledge. But you have to be able to evolve continuously. And so I had to go on my own journey to become my own strong individual before I was going to be out in a dating world and be at all successful, if I want to use that word. But, it doesn't happen overnight.
You have to define what success means. Success dating in your 20s means a little bit different in your 30s, 40s. Everything is about where you're. I think there are 3 unique challenges for a woman when you are dating in your 50s. And some of the best women I know are in their 50s. Women in their 50s look better than they have ever looked in the history of mankind. They look great. The 3 unique challenges, and you can either agree with them, disagree with them, or whatever. It's from my perspective of talking to a lot of women in their 50s. If you want to date somebody your age, those guys still have a large pool of 30s and 40s to chase around if they want to. If you want to date older than your age, the women in their 50s have way more energy than the men in their 60s. The men in their 60s and 70s tend to poop out. The third, and I think the biggest challenges for the women in their 50s, is there is no group of women or men that is more set in their ways than women in their 50s. I know what I like. I know what I want. I know what I deserve. I don't need a man. That mindset at any age is going to make it a challenge. That is uniquely ingrained. It's easier to change a man who's 58 than it is to change a woman who's 58.
You think?
Yeah. She's a lot more like, I know what I deserve, which is good. I know what I want. I know what I don't want. And there's these very hard and fast rules, lists, things that make the possibilities, I think, a bit narrowed.
Okay. I mean, I talk about this, obviously. This is what my podcast is. It's about the shit show dating in your 50s. And I think women today in their 50s is way different than 10, 20 years ago if you were single. And I think women in their 50s struggle with dating for various reasons. Hormonal reasons. Our body has changed, which makes we don't feel confident sometimes. And you're dealing with a lot of times when you're dating in your 50s, just what you said. If you are a woman in your 50s and you do want to date in your 50s, good luck, because the guys in the 50s do want the 30, 40-year-olds.
Right.
Very, very true.
Yeah.
And for me, though, I like to date older. So mine is dating in their 60s. And I have not run across guys that can't.
They want to go to bed at 8:00. A lot of them do, especially where we are. They want to golf. They want to poop out. Trust me, I don't want to go out till I'm not in my 60s, but I don't want to go out till 2:00 in the morning anymore.
No.
The women tend to have a second wind that a lot of the men don't have. Deep into their 50s, a lot of women have more energy. A lot of women do feel better about themselves physically. Again, they go through hormonal, they go through life changes, but they're able to put a face out there that he doesn't necessarily have.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the man is looking to date younger because dating younger makes him feel confident again in a way that dating somebody his own age, she can buy her own shit. She's been on a trip like this. She's eaten dinner at this restaurant before. She's a little harder to impress. And so that is a little bit harder of a wall for the man to break down. And the men are always trying to find a crack in the wall.
Well, I think so. And I think I talk a lot about, empowering women, being empowered in their 50s. So you have like two sides of the fence.
Correct.
You have the insecure women in their 50s. Like, I'm just done. I'm over it. I don't want to date. And when I talk to them, I'm like, well, have you ever thought about changing what you're doing? Or do you feel like the same hamster wheel is going to lead to success? Do you think a guy's just going to fall in your lap? So you have to be a little proactive. I mean, you can't just be laid back and be like, well, I haven't met the right guy. And I think then the other flip side is you have very alpha 50-year-old women. And men sometimes don't know what to do with that.
Right. They've ramped up their masculine energy. They've ramped up their independence. They ramped up, well, I got rid of a guy. I'm out here on my own. Oh, but I want to go to a romantic setting. And he is not feeling that. And a lot of the women of age in their 50s, they're like, I shouldn't have to, quote unquote, train a guy. I shouldn't have to tell him what to do. And I'm like, you absolutely should train a guy. He wants to be trained. He can be trained. He needs to be trained in what you want, because every woman is different. Some women, and I agree, in their 50s, still want to be picked up. Still want to be called up, asked out, picked up at their house. That's the way they dated back in the 20s. They don't have 20 years of, oh my God, everybody's crazy. They're going to kill me. They want that. Some women are like, you got to be kidding me. Everybody's a psycho or whatever.
Right.
Telling the man, this is what I feel like I want. Don't use the word deserve, but if they say, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is what makes me feel good, and this is how you can find a space in my world, the guy will jump up however high he's got to jump up to get the cheese if that is said in a positive fashion. A lot of women are just like, he could tell. You can't tell.
No. So I will say one of the things I define as really important in a relationship is communication. If you're a guy and you're a woman, you think he's going to read your mind? No. I mean, like you do have to say, hey, this is my love language. This is what I need. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to be able to do it, but I do think you need to be bendable. I don't like the word training. I like the word bendable more, and evolving is the way I look at it. And I do find that men in their 60s are very set in their ways. I got to be honest. I don't know about training. Now, will he dress the way you might want to? Maybe. But
I think he will. I think if however you want him to dress is not just how I want him to dress for the world to see him, and you let him know, if you dress this way, I want to rip your clothes off, he'll put on a clown suit.
Nope. Guess what?
They will.
Not a lot of them.
Well, I think that then it's about the information. Because if you ask 100 men, are they open to that? And they're like, it depends on what I'm getting out of it and whatever. Yeah. If you're just saying, I want you to wear this with no context and no anything, they will change.
No, like,
because they will change for the right women.
In that situation, and like it was an issue, and it was like a long-term dating, and he just found it incredibly offensive. Like, why aren't you accepting me the way I am?
I'm not talking about long term. I'm talking about early on. Because what the women tend to do is this. They're okay with it a certain way. You're out there, wearing your Dan Marino jersey to dinner or whatever. And then once you feel comfortable enough in the relationship, then you decide to make the change. And he's like, she's crazy. She changed. Suddenly she wanted me to be something that I'm not. Right. If it's early on saying, even, first couple of days, you would look amazing in a blue suit because you have amazing eyes and it would really come out. He'll put on the blue suit.
I like that.
That is that is nuancing, because once you do it 3 months in, then it says, I don't like this about you.
Yeah.
It's what needs to be different about you. When you do it early on, it's, wow, that would turn me on.
So I definitely, I subscribe to something that you don't, which is pre-dating, which we can get into at any time. But, I believe.
Well, what is it?
Pre-dating, to me, it's very simple. If you're meeting people like on social app, for example, or Facebook dating app, usually you start off with a little texting, not texting, like chatting, whatever it is. And then you move on to a little texting. And I will not go on a date until I've done a FaceTime. I mean, want to know why? And this is men and women. They're both in the wrong about this. I don't know the percentage, maybe you do, how many have fake old pictures and they lie about their age. And it's so annoying because like people, we can see the picture posted is from 2019. That is,
I get that. So you don't really need the conversation. You just need some verification. This is what they look like.
I want to know for real that they are putting forth, because if you start a relationship on a lie, where's it going to go from there?
Well, what if it's not a lie? What if it's just a picture that doesn't quite make them look? What if she just doesn't have a picture from the waist down? What if she just doesn't, or he? What if you just don't have that in one of your pictures? I don't think FaceTime's going to help that either.
No, but I will tell you, I just had a conversation with somebody last night who's my age, but dating with a 10-year-old. So she definitely has some different obstacles than most of us. And part of what we were talking about is she's like, I just want to meet a guy that I'm hot for. I want to jump him right away. And I'm like, what turns me on is not just the physical. At this age, at this time with my experience, there's so much more than you can actually find chemistry past the first date. Sometimes it's a mental connection. I
agree. Or you're nervous. But, you're also not tired chasing around a 10-year-old. Maybe she just wants to get her bones jumped, She might have different needs. But if you're saying that I really just need some verification and validation of what this person looks like physically, that's fine. If you're saying I need to have a conversation with them and it feels to me like in an interview, I think that doesn't tell you anything about that person other than they may or may not be good at FaceTime.
Well, I'll tell you one time. So like this one guy that seemed really good, and we do FaceTime and he had like the Macedonia nasal kind of, I'm like, done. Not happening. Like, I just, everything was good leading up to that. And then I was like, I can't listen to that squeak.
I know. But then you're letting one red flag or one thing you don't like get in the way of the possibilities that if you met, and maybe in real life he doesn't sound that way, or maybe he has so many other attributes that you would forget about that. I think you really don't know if you're going to click with somebody until you are face to face. So I think you might be ruling in some people, but I think if you do that, you're ruling out a lot of people that if you met them, maybe they're not good on the phone because we don't talk on the phone as much.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a skill. It's a muscle. I don't want to talk on the phone to anybody.
But again, so like I'll be dating somebody now and you know what? He's honest. I'm not a good communicator. I don't like talking on the phone.
Yeah.
I'm not a good texter. Just be honest so people don't take it the wrong way.
I'll be like, I have an Android. I don't even have FaceTime. Sorry.
No, like I bent my own rules. Don't misunderstand. Because if I get a good vibe and, maybe I met him out organically, obviously I don't need that. But like I definitely want to know more than just a hi on a dating app and hey, can I take you out for drinks?
We didn't used to have a whole lot more to go on, and we'd see somebody, we were kind of drunk and it was loud in the bar and let's go out. And then you went out.
Yeah, but that's chemistry got to lead. Now it's not chemistry leading anymore.
I don't know if it's chemistry or it's alcohol or it's, wow, she's hot. I've had a lot of people that I met in a bar and then I asked them out and I was like, it's the same thing. Like, oh, that's not what I remember. Yeah. Her pictures in my brain were different because of my alcohol or vice versa. I met a girl once at a Halloween party. Thought she was the hottest thing ever in her Cruella de Vil costume. And then I asked her out, and then I picked her up, and I'm like, where's the costume? She looked so much better in the costume that I was, and that's not her fault. That was my weird thing, but I'm like, a lot of people look better on Halloween. A lot of people look a little sexier and whatever. The makeup was better, and a lot of people did. I was like, that's not her fault. That's just my weirdness. Like, she was perfectly lovely and fine, but I was like, she doesn't look as good as she looked that night.
Right.
That's not good either.
No.
Like, I think we got to give everybody a shot. I think we got to work through the awkwardness. And a lot of things to that end, way too many people, especially as we get older, if we are not because we have had those magical dates and we've had those magical experiences. And if we're not feeling the way we know it is possible in the first 15 minutes, we pull the parachute and we're out of there versus working through the ick till we can get to that place.
Right.
When you're 23, you're not dating that much anyway. You're going to bars, you're hooking up or whatever. And so you don't have this memory bank of what a good date should feel like.
Right. And
so now when you're in your 40s and 50s and 60s, you're like, I know what my best dates have felt like, and this isn't that.
Right.
That doesn't mean the relationship couldn't be that.
So do you know statistically what men and women want in dating in their 50s? There's actually there's three things.
Companionship?
Yes.
Is this from men or women? Is it the same
both.
list? Sex?
That was not on the list.
I don't know. Stimulation?
So it's love. Companionship.
Love, yeah.
And looking for somebody to go through the rest of their life on a journey. Those are the three things that people, men and women, statistically most look for in a partner after 50, because you've moved on to a different stage. If you've had kids, you're done. You're an empty nester. And men, upper 50s, 60s, they're heading towards retirement if they're not.
So
already.
Where's the room for magic in that equation? None of those three things sound terribly fireworky. Oh, I agree with you. I think those probably are. I think the people who want that are like, I don't believe in it anymore, because a lot of people, I've never been married. So the fantasy of happily ever after still exists for me. Everybody.
What do you define happily ever after then for you?
That once we get married and we say, I do, it's happily ever after, there's no end date.
So you want to get married still?
I still am open to the possibility of married because it hasn't been spoiled to me. The bubble hasn't been burst. The people who have gotten divorced or, God forbid, widow or widower, that didn't happen. So they're a lot less likely to jump into the fairy tale that they had in their mind as people who've never been married.
Yeah,
we all have
agree.
that.
I would agree.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to agree and disagree with a lot more things. I got to take a quick break because we got to pay for the fairy tale around here. I'm with Nicole Chaness. She's from 50s AF. We will be back right after this. And we are back. Forgive the background noise. It's booming here in Florida. They're building things.
That's my unit. They're building right there.
There's also, you got to be careful here. This is like Jurassic Park. There's like all sorts of critters, at best critters, crawling around here. So how do you bring that back in your 50s? How do you tell your friends, your women, to still believe in not necessarily the fairy tale, but magic?
Well, I think first and foremost, you have to work on yourself. You cannot fall in love until you love yourself, honestly, because most women in our 50s, if we're single, it is because predominantly we're either divorced or a widow.
Yeah.
So until you really can embrace and feel confident and love yourself, you're not going to have a healthy dating life. So you have to do those steps. You can't avoid it. And that's that hamster wheel I talk about.
And you can't still be angry at your ex.
Yeah,
There's
yes.
so much of that.
I don't believe in holding on to anger.
But a lot of them do.
Yeah, no. And it is part of like therapy. Go for it. Like and here's another thing. What women do make a mistake along the lines of what you were saying is if they had a horrible breakup and they start meeting a guy and he does one thing, one minute thing.
Reminds me of my third husband.
And then it's like, boom, I'm out of here, because they haven't done the work to get over that.
Yes.
And so that person might have been really good for them, but because it was a trigger that they haven't worked through, they're no longer.
So what is the
considering
first
that
step
person.
to doing the work? Like, not everybody wants or feels comfortable doing afford, $350 an hour therapy.
Yeah.
Is there something that somebody can do? Is it asking yourself a bunch of questions? Is it saying, what was my role in my relationship failing? What is it?
Well, you know what I think is a really good thing? Women leaning on women. I'm speaking in terms of women. So like there's this, I'm plugging a great app called Meetup. And when I first moved within Boca, from west to east.
Yep.
I didn't know anybody.
Yep.
So I created my group. I have 500 women in it for right now. So you know what? They're not all secure, but they get to talk about it. They get to learn from each other. Oh, try this, try meditation. Let's go to the beach and do this. And together as a sisterhood, they sometimes are helping each other build their way up and calling each other out.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
There is such a value in being social again. And that can be around people of the same sex. It can be people of the opposite sex, whatever. A lot of people, once the relationship breaks up, whether it's a marriage or a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, they retreat into the solace and the solitariness of their home. I am going to binge Netflix I don't want to go out on Friday night. It's going to remind me of this or whatever. And then days, weeks, months, years go by. That becomes your new normal, and you have forgotten how to interact with society, much less people of the opposite sex.
Yeah.
It breaks down your confidence. It breaks down your social skills. Makes it so much harder.
So much. But I do think they're entitled to a mourning. It's like a mourning period.
For sure.
And I know personally as a widow, after 6 months being in the bed, I just finally lift the covers and I said, you know what, Nicole, get your shit together. If you don't do it, no one else is going to do it. And it was a 2-year journey for me.
I've noticed that you bring up the widow thing, and this is a big part of the Golden Bachelor this year. A lot of times the widower is ready to date before the people are comfortable dating them. How do you let the people know that I'm okay to date? I'm not going to, and not to say this is a bad thing, burst into tears and everything. Like, how do you let possible suitors know, not that it's so far in your past you don't even think about it, but how do you create that balance? That's
a really good question. And I think honesty and communication, and don't let the other, whether it's a male or a female, assume, because you know what? I was lucky. My first boyfriend was so honest and understanding and on my journey, but definitely I have had people approach me like kid gloves, and I'm way out already at this point.
Yeah, I know, because you don't even know to bring it up.
Right. Like, it's like, you know what? If I bring it up, that's the golden door. I've just said it. But again, I think you don't have to go to therapy, but like I just learned last night, I didn't do any of these like groups for widows or grieving stuff. I was like, I don't want to be more depressed. So somebody told me about a group that actually is just a bunch of widows, but it's uplifting and fun. Now that's a fun group to be a part of.
Right.
But honestly, like I don't need to be sitting around and be reminded why I'm a widow and what I went through every day, because I'm not healing. You got to get out there, like you said, and socialize, learn how to be out there again, learn how to like feel good about your body and your presence, because a lot of women are in the menopause stage at that point, and that's really challenging.
So that's a really good point, and that was funny. That's the next thing I was going to bring up. Obviously, I think, and I've said, the women look better than ever. They have more ways to look better than ever. How do you get somebody who maybe she's just been raising her kids for 20 years, she's been in an unhappy relationship, to suddenly take the step of, oh my God, I got to compete with that? Especially in a place like South Florida where people aren't wearing nearly as much clothing. You can't hide behind your window. How do you get her to find confidence when it's a muscle she hasn't used in 20 years?
I think using the tools that are out there, like you said, not everybody can afford therapy. And I get that.
Or plastic surgery.
Or they can't afford even to join a gym, maybe.
Right.
You know? And again, that menopause, you know, that adds the insecurity of starting out there. So I really think if women join groups with like-minded people, A, they're going to meet girlfriends. B, they might meet a guy because they're doing things, they're leading with what their interest is. So people sometimes lead with their interests. That chemistry and that bond and opportunity might happen.
I think you're trying to, before you find a guy, I think you got to find your smile again.
Agree.
And you got to find ways that will bring a smile back that's going to change your soul and your spirit. You know, you're not even right away going to find the best version of yourself. You're trying to find the next version of yourself. And if that's the baby step you need to take to feel just a little bit better and have a little bit better approach and attitude and open it up to people around you, so you're not just been like, oh my God, everybody sucks. Dating is going to be hard. This city's the wrong place for me, and on and on and on. You have no hope.
No, and to answer your question, it's step by step.
Right.
Any coach will tell you the license, it doesn't happen overnight. It's step by step. And I think you nailed it. Finding your smile. let's face it, laughter is like the healthiest thing in life.
Yeah.
And you have to find your smile.
You do. And I think you have to start with finding it by leaving your house.
Yes.
You don't have to dive into the middle of a, Yankee Stadium and it'd be around 50,000 people. But if you go for a walk and you see the stimuli and you start to notice things again, and like I say, people notice you notice you back, you become engaged, the answers, and that's why this was such a terrible thing for our society to lock ourselves down for a long, long time and shut ourselves off from the world.
Yeah.
That created a lot of bad habits. I'm going to have the food brought to me. I'm going to have I'm going to have Amazon delivered to me. I'm going to binge hours and hours of shows on a weekend, so I'm not going to do it. It took us out of normal, quote unquote, patterns of interaction that led to certain habits, that led to certain possibilities that could lead to certain relationships.
But also, here's the thing, and I talk about this. Sometimes women in their 50s are looking present and forward, right? They lost who they were in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. They need to go back and go, oh, I was hot. I had it together. I can get that mojo back. They forgot at one point before they were married, let's just say, for years or in a partnership for years, that they were good and confident in dating.
Yeah.
And I think you need to take a step back and remember that part of you that was good like that and go, okay, I want to be like that again. What can I do?
You're right. You don't need to remember the way you looked, but you need to remember the way you felt.
Yes.
And figure out, how did I get to that point? Because there's a good chance even on your wedding day, it wasn't the best you've ever looked, but you felt the best you've ever felt.
Yeah.
And so you have to think, well, what were the things that I did to feel a certain way and to feel a certain way around me and to enjoy somebody thinking I looked great?
Yeah.
Take the compliment.
Yeah. Oh, take the compliment. You know what? That's not always easy for a woman sometimes.
I know. I don't know why. Give me the compliments. We don't get them. Why is it so hard for a woman to take a compliment?
I don't know. I know with me, I get a little bashful. I do. Even me. Like if somebody says, oh, you're so pretty, I'm like, oh, thanks. And the first thing we do, and I'll tell you why, women are historically the hardest on each other.
Yes.
Okay. So it's not the men. So
the girl on girl crime.
They'll like say, hey, what's going on there?
Yep.
What, you need to fix that. Or so like you feel insecure sometimes if this one person is like at a higher level and you're like, oh, I don't look like that. And you start getting insecure. So along comes somebody that compliments you, like, in your mind, you're thinking that person who looked so good.
Yeah.
I'm not like that. So it's like, oh, it's just hard, especially if a woman is just coming out of divorce or being a widow. They haven't had it maybe.
You're right. And women are so hard. I see, certain celebrities will appear that you haven't seen in a while and you'll see a bunch of commentary on social media like, oh my God, she looks like shit. Oh my God, what did she do to her lips? Oh my God. It's almost always women and gay men. Yeah. It's almost never straight men. They're just like, I don't get it. She looks fine. She looks the same. Yeah. We don't notice it. That sisterhood is not nearly as supportive as women think they are because a lot of women are like, it's hard enough in my 50s. I don't want that bitch over there to get ahead of me. It's, life is competitive. Men are not exactly great with each other either, but a lot of times men just tune the other guys out. They don't really care. Yeah. The women are always looking at the quote unquote, the competition at both sides of their eyes all of the time. Right. It makes it a challenge when you do not feel supported.
And it is. I mean, I'm definitely a person that, isn't a wallflower. And, when I go out with a bunch of women and it's like, some will look at it as being intimidated by me and some will be like, okay, what can I learn from Nicole and embrace my words? And
you shouldn't have to dial it back for their cause. They need to keep up. They need to benefit from your energy. You're doing a lot of, if you're out with 6 women, you're doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
You're bringing the energy, you're stimulating the dialogue, you're getting the attention. Makes your life easier.
I did that once. I had like a bunch of women at a happy hour. I drummed up at a famous pickup place here in Boca, and they were all huddled in a corner.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
it's like a school dance.
I go, there's guys all around this bar. What are you waiting for? It's hard for guys to walk up to a group of women, right?
Oh, there are so many wine bars where 8 women will sit around and talk about their ex-husbands and they don't feel them approachable. It's hard to crack that shell. Yeah.
So my thing is, I did in this particular day, I took a few that were willing and they were with me and I just went and introduced, hi, my name is Nicole, and this is so-and-so. And we went around that whole bar introducing, and I wound up actually organically meeting somebody, but they were like, you could see them starting to smile.
Mm-hmm.
Like they weren't just sitting in that corner like, why isn't anybody coming up to me? Well, you know what? That's one of the first steps.
The other
Putting
thing,
yourself out there.
women do need to dial back their girl packs, though. The number that you should go out in is 3. If you go out
3.
with you and your friend, he thinks she's not going to leave her friend. That's going to be too hard.
Yeah.
4, then I'm diving to some pack and they have their own thing. 3, you can get one and the other 2 can get home together.
I don't know.
3
I'll be
is
out
the
with
number.
1 and I still get,
That's different, but then your friend is left alone. That's not good for her.
She's married and older.
Well, I'm talking about 2 single girls going
I
out.
know,
It's rough. I'm just looking from the guy's perspective. He's doing the calculation. He's always looking for a group of 3. So if that's your number,
Interesting. I didn't know that.
that's what you're looking at. All right. The best thing about being single in your 50s is what?
You don't have to answer to anyone.
That's a good.
Seriously.
I know that is true.
Like I literally I just closed yesterday on a condo and I'm like so proud of that accomplishment. And I said, you know what? This is the first house that I don't have to do with kids of mine. This is the first house I don't have to do with a man, a husband in mind. This is all me
It's
that
mine.
I'm redoing it.
Yeah.
And that is so empowering, very empowering.
And your best piece of advice to, I'll just say, attract possibilities is what? If you're a woman looking to attract interest from men, what is the one thing that you think they're all capable of doing?
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, men want confidence. They love a woman with confidence. So that journey, whatever it is that you have to go on, whether it's therapy, meditation, meeting other women, or support groups, whatever works for you to gain that confidence and remember who you used to be. Because that's a lot of the hurdle is who did I used to be? What is my definition if I'm not mom and a wife or a wife or a partner? They lost themselves. So they have to go on a journey to find themselves again.
Yeah.
And I think by doing that, men are really attracted. Look, I actually asked, this is a survey I did. Are men more attracted here in Boca, especially? Yeah. Men can have some deep pockets, right? So I said, are they more attracted to a confident woman that has her shit together or the wounded bird?
Yeah.
And the wounded bird gets a lot of game. You want to know why? Because she looks up to him like he's God.
Yeah.
And the woman...
Wounded bird is one step above basket case. So wounded bird's actually okay.
Yeah. No, it doesn't mean she's a basket case. It means she'll accept anything because she's clinging and wants anything, where a woman that has her shit together, that feels confident is, we're bendable, or we should be bendable. Everybody should be bendable. But, men find that attractive, having confidence.
You need to figure out a way to sort of upgrade from hot mess to beautiful disaster. And that means that most of the shit is getting together. Right. But whatever that shit is, I own it, and I don't blame anybody for it.
Right.
And if you want to be a part of it, bring it on.
Right. And this doesn't, I want to clarify, especially with women. Women in their 50s are very caught up about their body image and how they feel and look. And you know what? Men aren't necessarily just that's in their 60s. They could see past that. They want the person.
Yeah.
And you know what? We all have our flaws.
We think you look great. I'm going to let you plug the podcast in a minute, but in the interest of time, this is your first time on the podcast, we play something called Worst Date or First Date. So you either have to give us the worst date you've ever been on.
Wait, is it clean or?
It could be whatever you want. It doesn't have to be clean. It's whatever you think is entertaining.
But it has to be a first?
No, it can be the worst date you've ever been on or the greatest first date you've ever been on. Your choice.
Okay. The worst. I'm going to go with worst.
Okay.
So we already had 1 or 2 dates, this guy, and he's like, hey, I was in California. If you're in California, going to Vegas is no big deal. Okay. And, he's like, hey, you want to come meet me in Vegas? I'm like, sure. Why not? I had nothing else going on. And he was there with his car. So I was flying there and we were supposed to drive back. Right. So we've already gotten to know each other. We were intimate kind of a few times. So it was more than a couple times. And, we go out to nightclub, have a great time to go back to the room, ready for getting our sexy on. And he has this bag that he literally of toys freaking pulls out. And the next thing I know, he's pulling out a full on strap on.
Oh no.
And I'm looking like, hey, I'm an open soul.
Yeah.
I'm all about fantasies.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, hell no.
A little quick here. Yeah.
I dipped out. I took a plane home that.
Oh, not even the ride home.
No.
So you didn't predate that one. Well, that wouldn't have come up.
No, it didn't. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it wouldn't have come up.
It didn't come. We had already been sleeping together.
He felt comfortable enough to let his freak fly.
And listen, I'm an advocate on
Yep.
50s AF podcast and my bedroom confessionals.
Yep.
You got to have your fantasies and
Yep.
fill them. It's one life.
A little quick.
It's a movie, and you're your own movie star.
Yep. Just wasn't. You weren't feeling it.
Nope.
You weren't feeling your room at the MGM Grand or whatever.
What was yours?
My worst date or first date?
Yeah.
Well, the listeners know. I have talked about it. You got to go back and listen to 400 episodes. You'll find it. It's in there. Needle in a haystack. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on. 50safpodcast.com. And we're on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. But I do a little something with a little juju called Bedroom Confessionals, which you can find on my website. And they get a little saucy, just like me.
A little saucy. Thank you for doing this. Hope this wasn't too painful.
No.
We'll edit out this background noise. As far as us and 50s AF, like, share, follow, please review this podcast and that podcast. Your reviews, even after 10 years of doing this, mean a lot in the podcasting ecosystem. Shoot us an email, greatlovedebate@gmail.com, if you've got questions, comments, thoughts, or anything else. We have a listener letter episode coming up the next episode, so send those in. Look at us on our Great Love Debate social media. It tells you what the topic is going to be. Go to greatlovedebate.com. We do have some more live shows. Not many. I'm winding down, but more live shows. We have to do one in New York, Raleigh, North Carolina, I think Tempe, Arizona, a couple others. greatlovedebate.com for those, because as always, at the Great Love Debate, we never stop making love. See you next time.